Have you ever chatted with a large language model?
Yeah.
Or NLM like ChatGPT or Claude, and had that moment where it just clicks?
Oh, absolutely. It gets the nuance, understands exactly what you mean,
Yeah.
spot on.
Right. And then like 5 minutes later, you ask something else, maybe kind of similar, and it's just way off.
Completely misses the mark.
Yeah, it feels like you're talking to a totally different thing.
It's a really common experience, I think.
Yeah.
That consistency or lack of it feels like maybe the biggest hurdle.
Totally. So the big question is, how do you get these incredibly powerful tools to consistently understand what you want and actually deliver it? Well, welcome everyone. Today we're doing a deep dive into exactly that, prompt engineering,
Right.
which is, well, it's basically the art and science of talking effectively to these LLMs, going beyond just, typing a basic question.
Yeah, it's about learning how to instruct them properly. And our mission today really is to give you a shortcut, a kind of core framework for getting the absolute best out of these models.
Okay.
We're going to hopefully reveal some pretty surprising things about how these AIs actually think, in quotes there, and process information. And we're drawing this directly from a key document looking into this whole area.
Okay, let's unpack this then. So our source material, it's this framework from Machikolai Murgeson, and it lays out this foundational idea right at the start, the setup.
Crucial part.
Yeah. And this covers things like system prompts and also the context that you, the user, provide. And just understanding these basic ideas apparently can radically change how you interact with AI.
It really can.
We'll also dig into some maybe counterintuitive limits, like what these models actually remember, or maybe more importantly, what they don't.
Exactly. So that first step in the framework, the setup, it is critical because it starts with something called a system prompt.
Okay.
Think of a system prompt as like the AI's core operating instructions.
Yeah.
It sets its main role, its behavior, even the rules it has to follow for the whole interaction. It's that initial directive that shapes everything else, making sure the model sticks to what you fundamentally expect.
So it's like telling the AI up front, okay, for this chat, you are a helpful assistant. Or the source had this great example. You are a tiger and you only know how to roar.
Right. And it worked, didn't it?
Yeah. They changed the system prompt from helpful AI to roaring tiger, and the model's replies just completely switched. Which, that vividly shows how flexible these things are. But okay, if a system prompt is that fundamental, how much can my prompt, the user prompt, actually override it? Is it like the system prompt always wins, or can we genuinely trick it into being something totally different?
That's a really good question, and it gets into the nuance of it all. So while you can't permanently change the hard-coded system prompt on a public model like ChatGPT,
right,
you can powerfully influence it, sort of temporarily, through what you put in your own user prompt. For instance, you can effectively say, look, for this specific task, act as if you're an expert document writer. Or, you are a senior Java developer who writes code with 0 bugs.
Nice. Wishful thinking on the last one, maybe?
Huh, maybe.
Yeah.
But the point is, that sets the immediate context, the tone, the objectives for the conversation that follows. It's like creating a mini system prompt just for that exchange.
Okay, that makes sense. And the source even gives the actual system message for Claude, right? Another big LLM.
Yeah, there is.
And it says things like, Claude was made by Anthropic, its knowledge cutoff was August 2023, how it should handle tricky topics, carefully, objectively, not downplaying harm.
Exactly. It really shows you the depth of those initial instructions, how much thought goes into shaping that default AI persona.
Definitely.
So moving on from the system prompt, the other huge part of the setup is the context that you provide as the user.
Right, the text we type in.
Simply the input text.
Yeah.
And what's fascinating here is how directly specificity links to usefulness. We'll suggest a good mobile phone, you get a very general answer.
Sure.
But suggest an Android mobile phone with a really good camera, battery that lasts all day, and a Snapdragon processor.
Yeah.
Now you've given it much more context.
And you get a much better answer, hopefully.
A much more personalized, expected answer, usually. The LLM's sort of word-guessing mechanism works way better with more detail. It's like giving it a clearer target to aim for.
That makes a ton of sense. More info helps it figure out what you actually want. But there's got to be a catch, right? The source mentions context length limits. That sounds like a big constraint.
Ah, yes. This is where it gets really interesting. And it's a common trap lots of users fall into without even realizing it.
Okay.
LLMs have a maximum amount of text, a maximum context length they can handle in one go. It's measured in something called tokens.
Right.
If your input goes over this limit, the model will simply chop off or just ignore the earlier parts of your context.
Wait, hang on. So it's not just forgetting, it's actively ignoring stuff I told it earlier.
Pretty much.
So are we basically like trick-or-treating the AI with our prompts, hoping it grabs the right info before its, token bag is full?
That's actually not a bad analogy.
And it won't even tell me it's ignoring parts. It'll just give me an answer based on, what, the last half of my prompt?
Precisely. And the source highlights a really key distinction here. LLMs do not have a continuous stateful memory like humans do, especially across long chats.
Okay.
Each new prompt, particularly if it pushes past that context window, is processed largely on its own. If your input crosses its token limit, it shifts focus to the newer text by just discarding the older context.
What?
No, you won't get a little warning saying, hey, I ignored the first paragraph.
Wait.
You might think it processed everything, but it hasn't. And that can lead to totally unexpected results or incomplete answers.
Okay, that's kind of scary.
It can also lead to longer processing times, higher costs if you're using a paid API, and just throwing irrelevant stuff in there can genuinely confuse the model too.
So we need to be smart about this context thing. What are the best practices then? How do we navigate these limits?
Okay, the source lays out 4 key practices.
Right.
First, relevance. Only include info that's directly relevant to what you're asking. Cut out the fluff.
Makes sense.
Second, conciseness. Be clear, get to the point. Avoid unnecessary words.
Okay.
Third, structure. If you have complex info, use things like bullet points or numbered lists. It makes it easier for the model to sort of parse it.
Good tip.
And fourth, and this is critical, prioritize important information. If you do have a lot of context, put the most vital details right at the beginning, because LLMs process text sequentially.
Got it. Start strong. And central to really using this power, understanding how much info these models can actually hold on to, are these ideas of tokens and context limits. The source really breaks this down, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. So think of tokens as the pieces or chunks of text the model works with. A token isn't always a whole word. It can be part of a word, like ing, or a whole word, or even just punctuation. Like the sentence, hello world, might break down into 4 tokens. Hello, ing, world, and text.
Okay. Chunks of text.
What's really striking about tokens isn't just that they're text chunks, but how the models seem to value them disproportionately. Stuff at the beginning and the end of your input gets more weight.
Really?
Yeah. It means the AI isn't reading your prompt like a person, carefully weighing every sentence. It's more like scanning for keywords and patterns within these strict boundaries, and it often overlooks stuff that's buried in the middle.
That's completely counterintuitive to how we communicate.
Exactly. And token limits are just the maximum number of these tokens a model can process at once. Think of it like a notepad with a limited number of pages.
Okay.
And crucially, both your input and the model's response count towards this limit.
Ah, okay. So it's a shared budget, and then there's the context limit. Sounds similar, but slightly different emphasis.
Yeah, slightly different angle. The context limit is more about the maximum number of tokens the model can kind of remember or consider at the same time within one continuous chat or a single big input.
Like short-term memory.
Sort of, yeah.
You know?
Imagine your own memory has a limit. If someone talks at you for an hour straight, you start forgetting the earlier bits, right?
Definitely.
Similarly, if the conversation or the prompt goes beyond the model's context limit, the earlier parts just get ignored. Understanding these limits is vital because they directly impact how well the model gets what you're saying and how good its response is.
So structuring things effectively, maybe breaking down really long tasks or texts, becomes essential.
Absolutely essential.
Now, speaking of how models process information, the source highlights this really fascinating thing called lost in the middle. This came out of research from Stanford and other places.
That's right. And what's fascinating here is this U-shaped performance curve they found. Yeah. So when you give the model a really long input, like lots and lots of text, with the important information buried somewhere inside, it performs best when that key information is right at the very beginning. They call that the primacy effect. Or right at the very end, the recency effect.
Okay, start to finish.
Exactly. Performance drops off significantly when the crucial details are stuck somewhere in the middle of all that text.
Huh. Like, if you give someone a long shopping list and they remember the milk and bread at the start and the cheese and eggs at the end,
Right.
but they completely forget the yogurt that was written halfway down.
It's a perfect analogy. Our brains do it too, to some extent. And it turns out LLMs do it quite dramatically.
Wow. That's a really interesting implication. It suggests just getting a model with a bigger token limit, a longer context window, doesn't automatically mean better results.
Not necessarily, no.
If you're not also careful about where you put the important stuff within that window.
Precisely.
This lost in the middle thing means you have to be strategic. Put your critical details up front or right at the end. Make every word count, but also make it count in the right place.
Exactly right. It really shifts the burden of effective communication back onto us, the humans, not just relying on the model to figure it out.
Okay, so system prompts, thoughtful context, navigating limits, clearly key. But the source also digs into ways to refine the output even more, right? Influencing its, personality or style.
Absolutely. Beyond just the raw information,
Right.
we can actually sculpt the AI's both personality and how it communicates. This is where personas and roles come in,
Okay.
along with defining its voice, tone, and overall style. So personas and roles are like simulated characteristics or jobs that you tell the LLM to adopt. It helps tailor the responses, make them more relevant, more engaging.
So you're giving it even more context, but this time about who it should be.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like if an LLM role plays as a scientist answering a question about climate change, it will likely prioritize citing scientific papers, use more formal language, frame its answers through that specific lens.
So you could literally type, as a climate scientist, explain the impact of melting glaciers.
Yeah.
And it would adopt that viewpoint.
Yes, you can absolutely do that.
Wow, that's incredibly powerful for specific tasks. You make sure the information is framed just right for what you need.
It genuinely is. And then, kind of related, we have tone, style, and voice.
Okay.
Tone is about the emotional quality, the attitude conveyed. An LLM can adjust its tone, formal, friendly, empathetic, whatever you need.
Example.
Sure, a formal tone might say, the research findings indicate a statistically significant correlation.
Right.
A friendly tone might be more like, hey, check out this cool discovery I stumbled upon.
Okay, yeah, big difference. That distinction is super helpful. It clarifies how precise you can actually be. And style, what's that?
Style covers the overall way it expresses itself. Word choice, sentence structure, rhythm. So an LLM could mimic, say, a journalistic style, objective, concise, or maybe a creative style, more imaginative, descriptive. Think breaking news, the rover detected water on Mars, versus in the moon's silver embrace, the rover whispered secrets of distant oceans.
Okay, that's a huge difference. The level of command you have over the output is, well, it's surprising. And finally, voice.
Voice is more about the unique personality or perspective shining through. An LLM can adopt an authoritative voice, maybe a playful voice or a thoughtful one. An authoritative voice might state, based on extensive research, we conclude. A playful one might go, hold on to your hats, folks. Science just did a mic drop.
Love it.
These elements, persona, role, tone, style, voice, when you consciously use them in your prompts, they can dramatically transform the quality and, crucially, the suitability of the AI's output for what you need.
Right.
It allows for this level of customization that goes way beyond just getting a factual answer back.
So what does this all mean?
Well, I think what it boils down to is that interacting effectively with these large language models isn't just about, typing a question anymore.
Right.
It's about understanding the underlying framework that guides how they respond. We've seen today the real power of understanding system prompts, the critical role of the context you provide, those often overlooked implications of token and context limits, and that transformative effect you can get by consciously using personas, tone, voice, and style.
Yeah.
These elements, pulled right from our source material, they really are fundamental if you want to master your interactions with LLMs and get past those frustratingly inconsistent results.
And this knowledge, it isn't just technical jargon for developers, right? It feels like practical wisdom for anyone looking to use AI better, whether that's for work, for learning, or even just out of curiosity.
Absolutely.
It implies that we as the users, we have to become much more thoughtful communicators ourselves. It's not just typing. It's almost, well, it's an engineering task in itself, isn't it? Prompt engineering.
It really is.
Okay, so here's a thought then for you to maybe mull over. Thinking about that lost in the middle effect. How LLMs are best with info at the start or end of a long input, but not so great with the middle bits. What could that suggest about the best way to present any kind of information? Not just to an AI, but maybe to other people. Does it raise a question about how we maybe should organize our own thoughts or presentations or even long emails or documents?
That's a great question.
To make sure the most important nuggets, the key takeaways, aren't getting lost in the middle of our own communications.